Welcome to Seductive Chronicles. In today's video, we're going to talk about something that most men spend their entire lives trying to understand, but almost no one explains clearly enough to actually change anything. There's a reason some women text one man the moment they feel bored, anxious, lonely, or simply in need of someone to make them feel good about themselves. And there's a reason those same women hesitate before texting another man, because deep down, they're afraid of what his silence might mean. One man is being used. The other is being valued. And from the outside, you cannot always tell the difference. Both men might be attractive. Both might be kind. Both might be doing everything they believe love is supposed to look like. But the outcome is completely different. Most men assume the gap comes down to looks, money, or social status. They are wrong. The real difference is psychological. It lives beneath the surface, in patterns most men never examine, in habits most men never build, and in a fundamental misunderstanding about what actually creates lasting attraction. Once you understand what that difference truly is, you will begin to recognize it everywhere in the relationships around you, in the behavior of people you know, and most importantly, in the role you have been playing in your own love life. And that recognition could change everything moving forward. Before we go any further, I need you to be honest with yourself for just a moment. If you have ever felt like you were giving far more than you were receiving, pouring in time, energy, attention, and affection while the other person remained comfortable and unbothered, type the word used in the comments below. Because what you are about to hear will explain exactly why that happened, and more importantly, it will show you how to make sure it never happens again. The man women use is almost never who people expect him to be. He is not the selfish man. He is not the irresponsible one. He is not the one who disappears or causes obvious damage. More often than not, he is the man everyone calls a genuinely good person. He is thoughtful. He remembers what she told him 3 weeks ago. He checks in consistently. He rearranges his schedule when she becomes available. He listens when no one else will. When she is struggling, he shows up. When she is overwhelmed, he steps in. When she is hurting, he makes himself completely available without being asked, at first glance. Those qualities sound like exactly what a healthy relationship needs. And they are, when they exist within the right foundation. The problem is never that he cares. The problem is that somewhere along the way, he begins to believe that his value as a man comes entirely from what he provides. He starts operating as though love is something he must earn, rather than something he freely gives from a place of genuine strength. Picture this man clearly. He wakes up each morning, wondering whether she has replied. He checks his phone before he checks his own thoughts. He reorganizes his day the moment she mentions she might be free. He runs a constant mental calculation of what more he can do to make her choose him. He genuinely believes he is showing love. What he is actually communicating is something very different. He is communicating dependence. And dependence, no matter how well-intentioned, does not create attraction. Many men were raised with a simple equation: work harder, give more, be more patient, prove your worth, and eventually she will see your value. That sounds honorable. But relationships are not job applications. Attraction does not reward effort the way effort is rewarded in almost every other area of life. A woman can appreciate everything a man does for her. She can genuinely like him as a person. She can feel warmth toward him. And still, none of that translates into the kind of desire that makes her afraid to lose him. Because appreciation and desire are not the same emotion. And the moment a man confuses the two, he walks directly into a trap that most men never see coming. Here is where the real psychology begins to unfold. The more available a man becomes, the less meaningful his availability feels. Think about anything in your life that exists without limits. Air, running water, a text message from someone who always texts back within seconds, no matter how little thought you put into yours. You stop noticing it. You stop assigning it value. Human psychology is wired this way. When a man is always there, regardless of how little effort the other person invests, his presence slowly transforms from something valued into something expected. He becomes emotional infrastructure, reliable, predictable, safe, and while those qualities matter deeply inside a committed relationship built on mutual respect, they are not enough on their own to sustain attraction. This is the painful truth that genuinely good men struggle to sit with. A woman might depend on him completely. She might trust him more than anyone else in her life. She might even need him in real and significant ways. But none of that means she fears losing him. Because being needed and being desired are entirely different experiences. The moment a man cannot distinguish between the two, he begins a slow, quiet decline that almost always ends the same way. What makes this situation even more damaging is what happens when he finally begins to sense her pulling away. His instinct, trained by years of believing that more effort solves every problem, is to give more. More attention, more reassurance, more availability, more sacrifice. And that is precisely where the real damage takes root. The pattern is so recognizable that once you see it clearly, you cannot stop seeing it. Everything begins with genuine momentum. She is responsive. Conversations feel natural and exciting. Plans come together easily. There is energy, anticipation, possibility. Then something shifts. Her replies grow shorter. The enthusiasm fades slightly. She takes longer to respond. Nothing dramatic, just enough to create a low hum of uncertainty in his chest. A man who is secure within himself reads that as information. He observes, adjusts, and continues living his life. An anxious man reads it as a problem that demands an immediate solution. And so, the cycle begins. He sends more messages. He offers more affection. He becomes even more available than before. In his mind, he is fighting for something real. In reality, the signal he is sending could not be clearer. Her attention has become more important to him than his own self. Women almost never respond positively to that energy. Not because they are cruel, not because they are playing games, because attraction is inseparable from perceived value. When one person is constantly chasing while the other remains still, a silent but unmistakable message is transmitted. One person is seeking approval. The other is deciding whether to grant it. That imbalance, once established, reshapes everything. She pulls back slightly. He gives more. She grows more uncertain. He grows more determined. And before long, the entire dynamic revolves around him working to reclaim something that was once given to him freely. He has crossed the invisible line between genuine affection and approval seeking. Love says, "I value you." Approval seeking says, "Please validate me." The words might sound similar in the moment. The emotional experience of being on the receiving end of each one feels completely different. Women track patterns far more carefully than most men realize. She notices who remains emotionally stable when circumstances change. She notices who keeps moving forward when she becomes temporarily unavailable. She notices who can sit with uncertainty without unraveling. When a man abandons his priorities, his routines, his peace of mind, and his sense of self, the moment she creates distance, she learns something essential about him. She learns that his emotional center of gravity does not live inside himself. It lives inside her. In the moment your inner stability depends on another person's attention and approval, you hand them a kind of power that very few people know how to handle responsibly. That power rarely produces attraction. More often, it produces distance. Female attraction is not built on words. It is built on the signals a man broadcasts beneath the surface, through his reactions, his restraint, his confidence under pressure, the way he carries himself when things do not go his way. Two men can say the exact same sentence and create completely different emotional responses, based purely on the energy behind those words. One man asks for her time because he genuinely enjoys her company. The other asks for her time because he needs her to reassure him that he still matters. The words are identical. The energy is not. And women feel that difference almost immediately. Now, let us talk about the other man. The man whose absence is felt. The man whose attention carries actual weight. The man she genuinely fears losing. This man is frequently misunderstood. People assume he must be exceptionally handsome, wealthy, or naturally magnetic. Sometimes he is. Most of the time, he is none of those things. What separates him from the man who gets used has almost nothing to do with what he owns, and everything to do with who he is when no one is watching. When a woman meets this kind of man, she notices something different immediately. His life was already moving before she arrived. He has goals he is actively pursuing. He has challenges he is working through. He has friendships, routines, passions, and a sense of purpose that exists completely independently of her presence. That sounds straightforward. In practice, it is extraordinarily powerful. Because, for the first time, she is not dealing with a man who silently expects her to become the center of his world. She is encountering a man who already has a world, and she is being invited into it rather than handed responsibility for it. A woman can feel the difference between being someone's entire purpose and being invited into someone's purpose. One feels suffocating. The other feels exciting. When a man's happiness depends on her choices. When his confidence rises and falls based on her approval. When his emotional state tracks her availability like a shadow. She feels that weight whether he expresses it out loud or not. It becomes a burden she did not sign up to carry. The man she fears losing operates from a completely different position. He enjoys her deeply. He chooses her intentionally. He values what they share. But he does not require her presence to feel whole. That distinction creates an emotional experience most men never fully understand. She never feels responsible for maintaining his sense of worth. She never feels like his entire identity is resting in her hands. Instead, she sees a man standing solidly on his own foundation. And something shifts in her when she encounters that. She relaxes, not because she cares less, but because she trusts more. She knows the confidence she is seeing is not a performance designed to manage her emotions. She knows the standards he carries are real. And she knows that his identity will not dissolve the moment conflict enters the relationship. Here is the uncomfortable truth that ties all of this together. Women rarely fear losing men who genuinely need them. Read that again, slowly. If she believes you will stay regardless of how you are treated, regardless of how little effort she invests, regardless of how much the dynamic costs you, what exactly is there for her to lose? Fear of loss only exists where loss is genuinely possible. The man who creates that feeling is not threatening anyone. He is not manipulating or playing games. He simply understands that his life holds real value, with or without any particular woman. And because of that understanding, his attention means something. His presence carries weight. His commitment feels earned rather than assumed. The bitter irony is almost painful to observe. The man who fights hardest to keep a woman usually ends up pushing her away. The man who has built a life genuinely worth living outside the relationship often becomes the one she works hardest to keep close. What truly separates these two types of men comes down to 4 specific qualities, and every man has the ability to develop all 4 of them. The first is understanding the difference between love and dependence. Dependence says, I need you to feel okay. Love says, I am already okay, and I choose you anyway. When a woman senses that a man needs her to regulate his emotions, every moment between them becomes heavier. Every disagreement carries extra risk. Every moment of distance feels loaded. The man she fears losing never places that emotional weight on her shoulders. His choice of her is free. And because it is free, it carries genuine meaning. The second quality is emotional self-control. This does not mean suppressing or hiding what you feel. It means owning it. When disappointment arrives, he does not collapse. When she becomes quiet, he does not immediately manufacture a crisis. He remains steady. And that steadiness communicates strength more powerfully than any performance of dominance ever could. Character does not reveal itself when everything is going well. It reveals itself under pressure. The third quality is having real boundaries and actually enforcing them. Many men speak about self-respect and then abandon every standard the moment attraction enters the room. A woman notices that gap between words and behavior immediately. Words create impressions. Actions create belief. The man she respects enforces what he has said he will enforce. Not to punish anyone. Not to play power games. Because he genuinely believes his time and energy hold value. And women respect men who respect themselves. The fourth quality is being fully present without becoming consumed. When he is with her, he is truly there, attentive, engaged, emotionally available. When they are apart, he returns to his mission, his growth, his responsibilities, his purpose. She matters deeply. She simply is not the entirety of his existence. The real shift begins with one honest question. What if she stopped being the goal? For so many men, every decision inside a relationship quietly revolves around her reaction, her approval, her attention, her choice to stay. When a woman becomes the goal, your entire emotional world becomes dependent on variables you cannot control. That is a game you will always lose. The man she fears losing plays an entirely different game. His goal is becoming stronger, wiser, more capable, more purposeful than he was yesterday. A relationship becomes part of that life, not the reason for it. When that shift happens authentically, everything else follows naturally. You stop chasing validation. You stop negotiating your standards downward. You stop measuring your worth through someone else's attention. You begin investing that energy back into yourself, your health, your skills, your work, your mission. The parts of your life that continue growing regardless of whether any particular woman stays or leaves. And then comes the hardest lesson. When she grows quiet, let her be quiet. When she needs distance, give her space without panic. When uncertainty appears, resist the urge to chase it away with more effort. Stay grounded. Stay focused. Stay in motion. This is not withdrawal. This is emotional maturity. This is what stability actually looks like in practice. Attraction does not grow from desperation. It grows from the quiet certainty of a man who knows his value, does not rise or fall based on another person's opinion of him. The man who gets used is trying to earn his worth. The man she fears losing already knows it. That single difference changes every dynamic that follows. So here is your challenge. If this video connected with something real inside you, type these 5 words in the comments right now. I choose myself first. Not because relationships do not matter, but because the strongest relationships are always built by people who already know who they are before they enter them. If you want more honest insights into attraction, female psychology, and the relationship patterns most men figure out far too late, subscribe to Seductive Chronicles and share this video with a man who needs to hear it today. Woman may appreciate a man who needs her, but she will never value him the way she values a man who stands completely on his own and still chooses her every single day. That is the man worth keeping. That is the man worth becoming.